Brit here. Why does your narcissistic ex still show up in your dreams, in your self-doubt, and in the way you second-guess yourself, even though he's long gone? Why do you still hear his voice in your head, criticizing you, or berating you, or telling you you're not enough? It's not because you're weak. It's not because you're secretly wanting him back. It's because he rewired your brain. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how that conditioning works, what the science says about it, including research from neuroscientist Dr. Caroline Leaf, and most importantly, how you can finally take your power back. Most people believe that once you leave a narcissist, you're free. End of story. But here's the reality. Leaving is only step one, because even after you cut off contact, the mental and emotional agony and the conditioning they built inside you lingers. It works the same way psychologist Ivan Pavlov demonstrated over a century ago with dogs. He rang a bell when feeding them. Eventually, they started tail wagging to the bell alone, even when no food was given. That's conditioning. I remember learning about Pavlov in school, and that's a pretty big deal. You know, there's another story about a giant elephant. A baby elephant was going to be trained for the circus, and they put a ring around one of its legs so it wouldn't go too far. And even when it was ginormous, it still thought the leash was only that far, so it wouldn't yank it out. It could have easily yanked it out. But that's mental conditioning. Narcissists use the same principle. They train you with cycles of love bombing, then withdrawal, then punishment, and then reward. And your brain learns to react to their bell, their texts, their moods, their approval. And that's why long after they're gone, you still feel like you're living in their shadow. You're not broken. It's a trauma bond. Dr. Patrick Carnes, who coined the term betrayal bond, describes this as an emotional attachment that develops out of repeated cycles of abuse, then reward. And the abuse actually strengthens the bond instead of weakening it. That's why it's so hard to break. So if it feels like your ex still has strings attached to your mind, it's because of conditioning. But here's the good news. Conditioning isn't permanent. Just like your brain was trained into this toxic pattern, it can be trained out of it. And that's what we're going to do today. I'll break this down step by step so you'll see exactly why you feel stuck and how to rewire your brain for freedom. And by the way, if you're already recognizing yourself in what I'm saying and you want help applying this to your own life, I've left a link in the description below where you can book a completely complimentary call with me, and we'll talk about where you're stuck and the first steps to finally get your mind back. I'd love to see how I could support you. The first step is understanding what actually happened to your brain. A narcissist doesn't just hurt you emotionally, they rewire you through a process called trauma bonding. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, author of The Body Keeps the Score, explains that trauma doesn't just live in our memories. It actually reshapes the brain and nervous system. And that's why you don't just get over it. Your body and your brain carry it forward. This bonding happens when cycles of abuse and then reward create a powerful attachment. It's the same mechanism that keeps gamblers hooked into slot machines, right? The unpredictability creates a stronger craving than consistency ever would. So you win once, but you keep hitting the slot button over and over and over for that one time, even if there's 50 times that didn't work. So even after they're gone, your brain is still left chasing those highs and fearing the lows from your ex. It's like your brain is a computer. They installed malware, a program that runs in the background, slowing everything down, making you second guessing your every move. And unless you uninstall the malware, it keeps running. So let's break this down a little deeper. There are three main ways narcissists rewire your brain. Number one, intermittent reinforcement. This is the classic hot and cold behavior. Psychologists have shown that unpredictable rewards release more dopamine, the brain's pleasure chemical, than consistent rewards. That's why, again, those slot machines are so addictive, and why your ex, his inconsistent love, hooked you so deeply. Number 2, gaslighting. When someone repeatedly tells you that what you saw, heard, or felt isn't real, your brain adapts by doubting itself. And research on chronic gaslighting shows it triggers the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for fear. And it weakens the prefrontal cortex, which is your rational part of the brain that helps you trust your very own judgment. Number 3, mirroring. In the beginning, they studied you and reflected your best qualities back to you. And psychologists call this idealization. And you thought you'd met your soulmate. But it was actually a psychological hook designed to make you feel like they're really the one and the only one who really gets you, right? Over time, these tactics of theirs carve deep grooves in your brain's thought patterns, which is why even years later, you can still feel their fingerprints in your thoughts. So, how does this show up in everyday life? Triggers. It could be a song, a place you used to go together, or even the sound of a text notification. For example, have you ever heard your phone ding and immediately felt a rush of anxiety or excitement? Maybe a weird mix of panic and hope? That's not you being rational. That's your nervous system responding to a conditioned cue, right? Not you being irrational. So neuroscience shows that triggers activate the hippocampus and amygdala in your brain, which are 2 brain regions involved in memory and emotion. They basically replay the old memory like it's happening right now. Another example, let's say maybe you find yourself over-explaining in new relationships or apologizing for things that aren't even your fault. That's conditioning too. It's your brain trying to avoid the punishment you learned to expect from your ex. So here's one of the cruelest parts of narcissistic abuse. Even after the narcissist is gone, their voice can remain. I know. I've been there. You know, it's that voice that says, you're too sensitive. You're not good enough. You know, you'll never find anyone better. That's not your voice. That's not God's voice. That's theirs. Schema therapy research shows that when people experience repeated criticism, they internalize the abuser's voice. And over time, the brain literally adopts those messages as if they were generated by yourself. So now, even in their absence, you keep abusing yourself on their behalf. One of my mentors says, don't let other people rent space in your head. So the first step to breaking this, recognize that the voice in your head is an echo. It is not the truth. Okay? So this all sounds pretty heavy, right? Yeah, it is. But here's the good news. Neuroscience proves that you can rewire your brain. I had the amazing opportunity to interview Dr. Caroline Leaf in a recent online summit that I hosted. And Dr. Leaf has been studying the mind-brain connection for over 30 years. And she teaches that thoughts aren't fixed. They're neural networks. And toxic thoughts can literally be dismantled and replaced through intentional practice. This ability is called neuroplasticity. It means your brain is not static. It's always changing. And every time you challenge a toxic thought and replace it with truth, you're building a new neural pathway. Dr. Norman Dodge, in his book, The Brain That Changes Itself, calls the most important discovery of the last few centuries the brain's ability to physically rewire itself through mental effort. So no matter how deep the narcissist programming feels, it can be undone. So how do you actually do this? Let me give you some practical steps backed by neuroscience. Step 1, awareness. Journaling awareness. Dr. Leaf's research shows that naming your toxic thoughts decreases their power. And when you write down the inner critic's words, you move them from the emotional brain into the relational, rational brain, where you can evaluate them. Step 2, name the planted voice. Psychologists call this externalization. And by labeling the inner critic as the narcissistic voice or even your ex's name, you stop fusing with it. And it becomes something you can argue against. Step 3, safe exposure with new responses. Cognitive behavior theory, CBT, shows that when you face triggers but deliberately respond in a new way, you weaken the old pathway and build a new one. For example, if a song triggers a memory, consciously reframe it as, that's the past. I'm free now. Step 4, repetition. Step 4, repetition. Neuroscience tells us that neurons that fire together wire together. You may have heard that. Repeating affirmations isn't cheesy, it's science. Each time you affirm a truth, like, I'm not too sensitive, I'm deeply intuitive, you strengthen the new neural pathway. And over time, those new pathways become your default. If you'd like to learn how to speed up those pathways and the healing process, go ahead and click the link below in the description so we can connect in a phone call. Healing isn't a one-time event. It's a layered process. First comes awareness. You understand what happened. Then comes trust. You start realizing you're not broken, you were conditioned. And finally, action. You begin rewiring your brain step by step. And that's what this channel is here to help you with. Awareness, trust, and action over and over again. I know when I theorized all this and studied this and read more books than I can count on narcissism, on codependent relationships, you name it, for years, I didn't step into the action of getting someone to come alongside me through the process. And I lost years. But thankfully, I'm here now on the other side, and I'm so grateful to be able to have this time with you. You know, you don't need to fix everything at once. Start with one thing. And when you focus here, the effects will ripple outward. You'll find yourself more confident at work, more at peace in friendships, and clearer in new relationships. And don't get overwhelmed thinking you have to heal perfectly. Research shows that consistency beats intensity and perfection. You don't need to meditate for 3 hours or journal perfectly every single day for 20 minutes or whatever it is. Small, consistent steps can rewire your brain far more effectively than huge, overwhelming changes once in a while, right? Healing compounds over time. And every time you notice a trigger and reframe it, you're spinning the flywheel, which we talk about a lot here. At first, it feels heavy, like nothing's happening. But with repetition, the wheel gains speed. I hope you'll let me help you speed up your flywheel. And soon, those old toxic pathways, they get weaker and the new ones become your default. And that's when freedom starts to feel natural. So don't leave this video without taking the first step towards freedom. Click the link in the description and I'll be here for you with a consult call. I'd love to help you apply everything we've learned today to your life. So remember, your narcissistic ex did not ruin you. They just left some faulty wiring behind. And that wiring can always be changed. So keep showing up here because in the next video, we'll dive into how to spot when your brain is being pulled back into old patterns and what to do in the moment to stop it. I'll see you there. And remember, if no one told you today, you are beloved.